Hello, Meet the Manager is back. Our regular catch up with the best advice from some of the community's top FPL managers of all time continues. Yes, we will focus on those with an incredible rank history, like our guest today, but we are adding to that by including some managers with an interesting story to tell, or just simply offering the FPL community something a little bit different, some unique insight and research that we really wanted to find out a bit more about. So today I'm joined by Tino, who has racked up 7 top 10k finishes across his 13-year FPL career, and he is 23,000 in the world this season. So far he could be on course for an 8th top finish, and he's wildcarding this week, so watch out everyone. What we'll do is find out a bit more about his career history, his tips for success, and then we'll be taking a look at his wild cards as a snapshot of his thinking. To timestamp this, we are preparing for Game Week 4 of the 2021-22 season. Tino, how are you?
Good. How are you, Joe? Thanks a lot for having me on the show. It's one of my all-time favorite shows, so really humbled to be on it.
No, well, I'm delighted that you've agreed to come on. We've been introduced by a mutual friend, Karen, who's a Scoutcast regular,
Of course.
and he told me about you. He showed me your career history, and I thought he was showing me my career history because your career is almost identical. Same sort of ebb and flow with the ranks, same good amount of ranks, and then same dips as well. So I'm very interested to find out a bit about how that is as well, and whether some similarities with how I've
Yeah, I
been
mean
going.
that's super reassuring, right? It means I must be doing something right if you're doing it. And we both probably are on the luckier side. I'm sure friends will say that it's a lot more luck than skill, but
Yeah,
I'll take luck any day of the week.
definitely. Well, I obviously think it's skill, but but we should find out. Let's put your career history up then.
Sure.
So this is quite something, really. So over your 13 seasons, you've finished in the top 10k 7 times. In that, most of those have been in the top 5k, and back in 2010 there was a top 500 finish as well. So before we look at the sort of nitty gritty, overall, really, there's been a huge consistency across those seasons. Were there any common themes amongst them? Your sort of key strategies each year that you've adopted?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a very good question. I mean, it's honestly the first time that I look at the history like year by year like that. Actually, yeah, some quite good finishes on there. I think the first one that I'll say is I have to admit luck plays a lot on
Oh,
my side always. So that is a big part in FPL, and you have to roll with the punches when luck doesn't play your way. I would say the second one for me is just being patient and not trying to go for differentials when the beginning of the season is not going well. I think I've always been quite a slow starter. Takes me a while to really like get the strategy right and to do well. And usually in the second part of the season, I tend to do a lot better than I do in the first part. I play the Christmas period and the busy periods quite well. Try to go for players that I feel will play every game, that will have a good impact. And then I like the third one is I rely a lot on stats. So on Fancy Football Scout, on a lot of different stats, I try to see like the end product of different players, and I trust the stats that players that are showing good promise. And when I watch the games, I see that they're quite clinical, whether it's in assists or finishing. I try to go for that.
so what sort of stats? I mean, there's a whole bunch of stats: expected stats, shots on target, chances
Yeah.
created. What are there any specific stats for specific types of players, and how do you use stats?
Yeah, so if we start from the back, I think back line, I tend to look at the team stats versus the individual player stats. So I try to look at teams that have conceded the least amounts of shots or big chances, and I try to go for a good option within that team. So like, and it's not usually teams that come to mind. So you would see teams like always Man City, Liverpool, and the likes like usually rank quite well in there, and they finish with a lot of clean sheets. But every year you get one or two different teams that are creating very few chances. Brighton, for example, in the last couple of seasons, even though like the clean sheets didn't live up to their potential for a couple of seasons, but they're always a team that concedes very little chances. So I trust in that. And over a stretch of a season, you will get a defender that racks up at least 8 to 12 clean sheets. And if that defender is at a 4.5 or maximum of 5, if there is any attacking prowess that player shows, then it's an added benefit. So in the back, I try to look for chances conceded. Now, in the midfield and the strikers, I look at like the chances created, big chances created for assist potential, and definitely shots on target and big chances and the conversion rates. And I think the conversion rate specifically is an important point because like I've been bitten by that before, like multiple times where you see a player that's taken a lot of shots, like Mitrovic, for example, like a player that would just shoot on sight, but the chances are not big and the conversion rate's very low. So they lose bonus points and they don't end up scoring and you end up sticking with them because you think they're going to like score next. Versus when you look at a Son playing, I mean, he gets much fewer chances created, but is super clinical. So I think combining these stats with watching, I think has worked well so far.
Do you tend to look at I tend to look at last 4 weeks, last 6 weeks data, but also bear in mind over a longer period as well. What sort of time scale do you look at with stats? I mean, because you seem to be, like you mentioned, my team Brighton there, and it's that seemed to be an attitude that developed over a season or two really worth of stats.
Yeah, so in goalkeepers and defenders, I look at home and away form, and I look at a longer period because it's very rare to see a team that just develops a consistent system of play that lets opponents have less or more chance. So in terms of the back line, I try to look for a longer period. I think up front, it's a lot of it is based on form. So if you see a player hitting form, first thing I look at is that happening? Is that a freak like situation where a player took 4 shots and scored 3 goals? Is it penalties or is it consistently that person's in the box having big chances and the position of that player is great? So I look at 4 to 6 weeks max when I look at midfielders and attackers.
Okay. Looking at things like expected stats. So a lot of things you've described to me are what goes into expected stats, but do you pay much attention to them, or do you essentially you've already done that work in your head already because you're looking at the other stats?
I don't do it. So I don't look at the expected goals, expected assists, but in a way, like in my mind, I'm trying to calculate it, not as quantitatively, but I think just looking at the numbers and seeing what is the conversion rate, like who's top in terms of attempts, big chances, all of that. So it translates probably to the same thing. And I think the important part, and that's why like when you look at the last 2 season finishes, I didn't finish quite high, is that I didn't really watch the game, like all the games that much last couple of years. Specifically like after the COVID break, that month and a half where there was a game every day, I just couldn't keep up. So I didn't really know, like I didn't marry the stats to the eye test.
Right.
And I think this is where it's super important when you see stats, is to watch the games, know how the player plays, see the positions, because sometimes a blocked shot is not seen as a positive stat, but a blocked shot like Lukaku's in Liverpool, like if Van Dijk wasn't there, that's a goal. And that's everyone flocking to get Lukaku, right? So it's like the eye test is quite important as well.
You mentioned about looking at home and away form as well, because that can be quite, particularly with some of the more mid-table or lower sides, they can be quite good at home, but very poor away as well. But has the last 2 years with COVID and the lack of fans, has that impacted on the way? Because that's your style to look at home and away, and we haven't really had home and away. There's been no fans.
Yeah, I mean, initially, I was a bit naive thinking that even without fans, like players playing on the same stadium, like every other week would get more used to it. But if you look at the clean sheet stats, like I think prior to 2019, like it was like a 59% or a 60% chance of a home team getting a clean sheet. During COVID, it was just like, there is absolutely no correlation between playing home and away. Now it seems like it's coming back with the fans. So it's great. I probably like didn't realize that at all over the 2 years. I was probably too stubborn doing what I do, like usually, and it came around and bit me, right? Like two like worse than 100,000 finishes, which is the worst that I've done like since I started.
I know, not bad, but it's only just on the outside of the top 100k, so
Yeah.
it's not far away from 100k. I mean, I suppose Everton were an example of that. They were the team that caught me out a lot last season. Historically, I've always thought Everton at home, great, great crowds. They do okay, and I did the same thing, and they were absolutely awful at home. So
Yeah, I mean, there are players that just don't work for you, right? Like Lucas Digne, Richarlison. Like there are some players that I just feel cursed getting.
yeah,
Every time I try to get them before a good run of form, and it just doesn't happen. And last year specifically with Everton, it was just super weird. I've never seen a team do that much better away from home than at home. I mean, even Manchester United now, what, 26 or 27 unbeaten away, but still their record at home is quite strong and they perform well at home. So that Everton stat like is just insane. Like yeah, and I attribute a big part to it to COVID.
yeah, definitely. You mentioned about sort of being a slow starter. So one thing you do is one of the questions I ask is about attitude to risk, and it sounds like you play safe early on, and then you take the risk to move forward towards the end of the season. Is that a fair gauge?
Yeah, I mean that's a fair assessment, and that's why I'm playing my wild card now.
No.
So it's actually a very interesting week to be on the show.
Yeah.
So I thought a lot about it. The team has been doing well, and I fall in that trap often. Like at the beginning of the season, I get a set of players. I try to give them more time to say that let me wait. I don't want to like lose points on additional transfers in the beginning. And the last two seasons specifically, I think I wild carded like very close to the January deadline. And then as soon as I wild carded, I saw that I have another wild card. So
Yeah.
then I was wondering, why did I wait so long to take a gamble? And this year specifically, and I'm sure we'll chat about the team in a bit, but there's so many interesting aspects that are like in different players that are coming in that if you catch one of them early, I think you'll benefit a lot. If you don't catch one of them early, and you end up, yeah, I mean, you end up getting a player that you don't think you got at the right time. It's always for me, I think a bit better to get a player early than to wait and to get him when everyone else gets him, because you can captain him early. And if you do that, and I did that a couple of years with Kane. I mean, Kane's usually like a non-getter for August, but people wait too long to get Kane in September when he starts scoring. So with Kane, I've always tried to get him in like with a good home game at the beginning of September, and it's usually paid off, and it starts to go better, and people start to get him later on. He becomes template, and you don't gain that much by having him.
No, that's it. I mean, he's a player like that, and I guess we're seeing that with, say, Ronaldo at the moment, where there's players that they can hover around the sort of 10, 15, 20% ownership, so you're getting that benefit even if they're captained. And then they do well, within a couple of weeks they're looking at 30, 40%. So as you said,
Exactly.
you can't gain it. So going early, this is, I heard a lot of content about not wildcarding, but it's good, refreshing, especially because I'm wildcarding as well, to hear the benefits
Yeah, I mean,
of wildcarding.
I mean, the pressure that you hear people talking about and talking in the different forums and different websites and shows, like, hey, like the best thing to do is to wildcard game week 6
Yeah, yeah.
because this is when something happens. I don't think there's a best time to wildcard. I think it's probably more gut than the state of the team. I felt that there were some players like Tsimikas, he was not going to play again. I had Barnes, who was a hopeless case. Like I just didn't see him bouncing back from the first 3 weeks. I saw Ronaldo coming in. I watched a couple of games. Like I'm an Arsenal fan. I watched the Chelsea game. And when that game finished, I was like, I need to get Lukaku in. So again, a lot of it is also gut feeling and you knowing when to take a gamble. And I think early in the season, it's much better to take a gamble because the price rises will happen. If Ronaldo, like which I hope happens, like does well versus Newcastle, it's 0.2 pricing difference with next week. If you get him in at the beginning of the week and someone gets injured, that's Champions League. So I just think like delaying it too much has cost me in the last couple of seasons. So I'm trying something different.
With the captaincy, do you take any risks, or is it the same method? Do you sort of take more risks towards the end, or you just go for the Salah, the Kanes?
Yeah, captains. I mean, I captained Antonio last week, which paid off. But it's honestly one of the only times where I've captained a sub 8 price player. I mean, maybe Clint Dempsey back in the day, and like there were some like good bargains that were
Yeah.
quite interesting to captain at certain times. But I think if you have a Salah or a Fernandes to an extent, a Ronaldo, someone who will take at least like 6, 7 shots a game. The team will dominate possession, and you know they'll get a couple of good looks. I think it's a bit too risky to captain someone where like you feel that if the game doesn't start well, the team will not react well, and yeah. So I trust more, not necessarily a premium, but a good player on a good team that will take big chances on goal. And I've never, I think, captain a defender ever.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I've twice in my time. Leighton
How did that
Baines.
work out?
Leighton Baines, I think he got me 6 points, so it sort of
Okay.
worked out. And Shane
Yeah.
Duffy, and that didn't work out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, the challenging thing with captaining a defender is that you're frightened the entire game,
yeah,
trying like watching the game. You're like every time the opponent has the ball, you're like frightened that they score.
yeah.
It's much more fun to watch a player try and score.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of the formations you use, now I like 3-4-3 and 3-5-2 if I can find a playing striker at 4.5. But what about you? Do you have a particular favoured formation, or are you quite flexible?
Yeah, so I mean I've never gone five at the back in a lineup, I think ever. I think I very rarely go with four at the back. I think switching between a five in the middle and a three up top differs year by year based on like who are the options that you have. So I think everyone this season, in a way, or most people this season started with two up top. I think some people started with Ings, Antonio, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and it has been working well. But I think over the next period, like the three up top will probably be the big thing. You have too
Yeah,
many options up
yeah,
front. The players getting bonuses, or like BPS points for scoring a goal. Attackers get more, and attackers will, like, you have the Ronaldos, the Kanes, Lukaku's. Like you have so many different options up top, and it feels like it's a wasted. Yes, granted, most of them are quite expensive, but it feels like three up top is probably the way to go. The question for me, and that's what I'm thinking through the wild card: do I go three in the middle, and go very heavy up top, which I haven't done before? I've never had two 4.5 minutes, or do I go with a slightly cheaper forward and I play a 3-4-3?
yeah. I mean, I've in the past I've gone for there's a particular type of midfielder that I always call the key to a wild card. It unlocks the others, and it's the player I always wait for. It's that 5.5 million
Yeah,
midfielder that I can play as my fourth midfielder. I can get a 4.5 midfielder in and bench them, and essentially I can go three, I can go four. But there are players, I think in the past, say Fraser at Bournemouth
yeah,
has been a good
yeah,
example. Mahrez is probably the most exciting.
yeah.
um, uh,
Ramsey at Arsenal first
Yeah,
season. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
I wait for that player, and I don't know if there is that player this time. And but I think, say for example, Damari Gray currently
yeah,
could
yeah,
be,
yeah.
and Odegaard at Arsenal, if Arsenal can become good.
Yeah, I mean, let's see about Arsenal. I think this year, I don't know if intentionally or not, but a lot of these options that should have been at 5.5 are at 6.
Yeah,
Like Benrahma, Trincao, Traore, like a lot of players really haven't scored well last year, but they're at 6 for some odd reason. So I did feel like that bracket of midfielders that's usually at a 5.5 this year is sitting at a 6. Even the Mari Gray coming in at 5.5, you can argue is quite high,
yeah.
to what was expected of him. So I think this year the 5.5 bracket hasn't been doing, at least, yeah, I mean, yeah, hasn't been doing very well. That's why I'm thinking, like, is it worth like sticking to a 6, and which is a 1.5 difference from a 4.5, or like pushing someone to a Lukaku up top, or just trying to go for a 4 or a
Okay.
4.5 in the back and playing that person week in, week out.
Okay. Just before we have a look at your team, so I mean, certainly whetted the appetite there to look at it, especially considering the three 4-3-3. Get it right.
Yeah.
But looking at that there, I wanted about hits as well. So you're wildcarding now. Some people are taking some hits now to get Lukaku, Ronaldo in, shuffling some of their bench players. What is your general attitude to hits? Do you take them sometimes, or do you try and avoid them?
Yeah, I mean, I do take them sometimes, very rarely more than a -4, and very rarely 2 weeks in a row. So I would probably, if I feel the state of the team is definitely not somewhere where it should be, and I want to do a couple of like big changes, I'd save transfers for a week, go for 3 transfers. That's usually how I lose like the -4. -8 very rarely. But again, like it goes down to the stats and the gut. If you feel a player will start an inflection point and will start to do well, especially at the beginning of the season, because price changes make such a big difference in your long-term performance. If your team value is 100 versus being 105 at Christmas, like it's a whole like it's an unfair advantage versus the rest of the teams. And I think people that manage that well, and get to a good team value by Christmas, and I think it's been one of the things that I've managed to do well. It really helps you in the second part of the season.
Definitely. Okay, well, let's have a look at your team, your game week 4 wildcard team. So you've sent me 2 teams. So the one we'll put up, and then we can talk about the other one. The one we put up is your plan A, and then you've got a plan B as well. So hopefully they're in the notes for you there. This is the 4-3-3. So do you want to run through who you've got and some of the reasons why you've chosen them?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, as I was saying, it was a super difficult decision to wildcard. I just felt I really wanted Ronaldo and Lukaku. Like I've watched Fernandes last couple of games. He felt a bit off the pace, not just in terms of points scored, but in terms of chances created, shots on goal, all of that. And it just felt to me that with Ronaldo coming, like most teams Ronaldo played in are Ronaldo teams. Like everything revolves around him. The comments Ole made around Ronaldo, like he's not getting him in, sit on the bench. Like for me, he's going to lead that United team. And he's all like, we've seen him with Portugal over the international break. Like he can score from the half a chance. I think he'll take on penalties. Free kicks, probably Bruno keeps. But again, like the conversion rate for Ronaldo on free kicks is not great as well. So the instigator for the wild card for me was Ronaldo coming in. I could have gotten him for a -4, but I felt that Lukaku, like when I watched him versus Arsenal, when I've seen what he does with Belgium, I think even if he has a couple of tough fixtures coming up, he could nick a goal versus Spurs or City, and then you would really want him later on. So then, do I really need to wait for another 3 weeks to get him in when everyone is going to get him? Or do I try to get him early and just bank on the chance that he does well in 1 or 2 games? He will get the chances, right? Like even in Liverpool, like in the first half before they got the player sent off, he got a couple of decent half chances that he could have scored. So I think these are the 2 pillars for me of the wild card. Lukaku, Ronaldo. Antonio's self-explanatory. I mean, the guy has been fantastic, right? And then with Benrahma starting that strong and me having him from the beginning, that enabled me as well to create that like front 3. Salah is always there. I am Egyptian, so I am a bit biased as well. But he's always rewarded. Like maybe there are some frustrations around some games, but he'll get you 250 points a season no matter what. So for me, very good captain material. Like he's the premium option in midfield. Rafinha hasn't done super well so far, but he plays in that like free role at Leeds, quite an attacking team, always lively, always willing to play on goal. So someone that I want to, and their fixture turn is quite good as well. Like they have some decent fixtures coming up.
From game week 5, yeah. So do you feel that with Dan James joining Leeds, Rafinha, I'm not saying his position will be in doubt, but no matter where he plays, for example, perhaps his influence on a game?
Yeah, I mean, I think Harrison might be the one that sacrifices a bit more. I think maybe he puts Dan James at right back. Like, I don't think Dan James comes in and threatens Rafinha a lot. I think maybe Rodrigo rests. Like, I think Rafinha having that number 10 number, Just, I mean, going to the Brazilian national team now, like I think he's made the team a bit more his own. His link-up play is quite good as well with Bamford. So yeah, I mean, I'll keep trusting him as long as he keeps playing most of the games and keeps the shooting on goal and keeps getting into dangerous positions.
With your back line, so you've got four at the back as well. Alexander Arnold, I don't think we need to dwell on that too much. You explained your reasoning about chance creation. But is there anything else
Yeah.
you wanted to add about Alexander Arnold, or is he just
No, I
a
mean
lock?
he's a midfielder that plays as a like for me, like he operates as a midfielder with chances created, free kicks, corner kicks. Like he's honestly a steal at 7.5. So he's in my team unless he's injured. Then Diaz is one that, like for me, when I started the season, I said, who's a season keeper? Who's someone that's going to rack in a lot of points? He's week in, week out in that Manchester City lineup.
Yeah.
They are the team that for probably the past couple of years has had the least chances on target of any team. We've seen him now with an assist, like he gets the odd bonus point. He goes up in corners, so I'm hoping for a good season for him. He's a set and forget option for me, so I'm just leaving him in there for now.
Now, Ben White, a good defender at Leeds and at Brighton. Arsenal, we don't really know. He's only had a game and then he got COVID.
Yeah,
But why is White in there?
yeah. So I mean, I am a huge Arsenal fan, right? It doesn't have an influence over my selection, but I really believe the last season Arsenal defense was quite strong. And the first three games of this season, like the entire team was nearly injured. Not saying Arsenal will have a good finish, but when Gabriel comes back, we play three at the back, a three center back partnership. I think the team will get stronger. The run of fixtures that's coming up is quite decent as well. I originally had Tottenham defender Sanchez in there. I didn't catch the dire price increase. They have Romero coming in. I don't know where he plays. I had Cody in there for a while. Not a very exciting option. So I do think White is now at 4.4. Maybe even gets to 4.3 by the deadline. I'm not sure. So I mean, I just transferred them out after I sent you the screenshot to wait for the 4.3 to happen. But I think he's probably a steal at 4.3, 4.4 if Arsenal can turn things around.
Now you've also got this is where some people might look at this team and go, you've got Ben White and you've got Shane Duffy, who will be competing for a place in the Brighton backline. Plus there's Williams there, who is the 4.0 Norwich option. So I think Williams is safe. We think.
Yeah.
Duffy might not be, but they are all good options. Is that what you? Is this a rare example of a risk for you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the two risks in there are White and Duffy. So for me, Duffy, it was what, 8 shots on target in the first 3 games. They have conceded goals, but they did look quite good. Like I didn't feel in any of the games that they were overrun. I think Graham, like Potter, has gone out and spoke positively about him. I thought he would potentially leave by the deadline. He didn't. I am taking a gamble that he keeps his place. If he keeps his place, I think he's going to score maybe 5-6 goals this season. He's super dangerous in all the crosses. And I do really trust the Brighton back line, hence the double Sanchez and Duffy. I wouldn't play him every week. Again, like I have Williams in there as well that I think could be a threat going forward. I think he plays every single week. We saw him at Man U in some of the games. He's quite good going forward. So that for me, like the Duffy Williams one is a bit of a gamble. And then the White one is I'm banking on Arsenal getting more solid defense.
You've gone for in Sanchez at the back as well for Brighton. So I guess that covers you for Brighton if you are wrong about Duffy.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm keeping Sanchez for the season. I think he's an excellent goalkeeper, and I do think at 4.5 really a steal. They fundamentally have not changed too much about their DNA. No. Whereas you talk about newly promoted sides, maybe a goalkeeper does well first 2-3 weeks or like does a lot of saves, but Brighton are a solid unit. They play quite compact. So I trust Sanchez. Duffy I have in there as a good option. I could go for the my namesake Tino Livramento from
Southampton.
Southampton. So I could have. I mean, I have the money to go for him, but I just feel I want to give Duffy a bit more chance to see if he continues to play. If not, then it's an easy chance, and I think he keeps his place at Southampton. So
Okay. In midfield, you've got Allen and Gilmore as well. They both should play, and they both have potential. Was Yeah, that sort of double 4.5 midfield. Do you feel that might count you out of trying to go for, say, for example, a Greenwood or a Jota or a Mason Mount?
yeah, that's exactly my plan B. So that's the final decision that I'm thinking through. Like I've never gone with two 4.5s in the middle. So there is an option to downgrade Lukaku for the next 3 games, which I have a gut that I should not. But downgrading Lukaku to Calvert-Lewin if
Okay.
he's past
So this is
fit
your
to
your
start the
plan
next
B
game.
would be Lukaku down to Calvert-Lewin. So that's 3 million suddenly freed up.
Exactly.
And where would
These
that
3
go?
million go to Gilmore to Mount or Gilmore to Jota. If Firmino is confirmed out injured, Jota is a good option. At least for the next 2 or 3 games. Leeds, we know, play quite open. They do well against the top six, home and away, but I think could be an open game. Then they have Crystal Palace at home. We know Jota is quite a clinical finisher. So that could be a good option. Having said that, like, yeah, the having Jota and Calvert-Lewin instead of having just Lukaku, that's the final decision that I'll make over the next week or so.
Definitely. I mean, I think that plan B would be, it could be more flexible, perhaps, because there are so many options. It's something we'll be discussing on this week's Scoutcast, and I'm wildcarding as well, and I want a million places. There are so many.
What are your thoughts? Are you going a 3-4-3 or?
I'm thinking of a 3-4-3. But I am undecided like you, and I think a lot of wildcarders are. And I think it pays to be undecided. We are quite open and flexible to things. But I'm looking at Ronaldo, Antonio, Calvert-Lewin, or Jimenez. One of those two.
Okay, interesting.
And
interesting.
I already have Greenwood. I'm going to be making a big profit on him, and I can't see any reason to drop him until perhaps I want Mason Mount. So I'm going to keep Greenwoods. So it's a case of Salah, Greenwoods, and maybe Jota. And I'm interested in Torres as well. Just as a set and forget. He might play, he might not. But if he's up front for Manchester City, I quite like him. So they're the sort of players I'm looking at. But it requires sacrifices somewhere. So I don't have a Diaz. I'm looking at, say, a Christensen at Chelsea. And so it's what you've been talking about, really. It's the sacrifices you have to make elsewhere, but they could pay off. And for example, the team we've got on here, Ronaldo and Lukaku, is potent, isn't it?
But I mean, you make a great point, right? Like the struggle with having an inflexible team is when you see players starting to pick up steam or stats starting to improve. Like basically, I probably only have these two positions in midfield that are Benrahma and Rafinha to play around with, and they're close to the 6.5.
Yeah.
So it's tough to stretch to that 7.5 bracket, which has a lot of good options this year. And this is why, like for me, the plan A versus plan B. Plan B gives me a lot more optionality. Plan A, the benefit of it is getting Lukaku early. So that's probably what I'm thinking about. The structure of the team doesn't change in the back, I think, for me that much. I think it's the fourth midfielder option and having Calvert-Lewin. Now, he's not past fit yet. Like I read a comment, like he had a broken toe, he had, I don't know, a hamstring. So the guy seems like he's nursing a lot of injury. If he's past fit for Burnley, he has had a great start to the season, not just from the penalties. Like his stats have been amazing.
Yeah, definitely. The way I look at that as well is because it's sort of future planning. Game week 7, as you said, everyone's going to want Lukaku. This great Chelsea run starts, and for those like me and many others, the only real way is to get rid of one of Salah or Ronaldo. But if you start with all three of them, then you can find you don't have to find the money for Lukaku. He's already there. So
Yeah,
that
exactly.
that is the
Exactly.
benefit of what you've got. You've sort of, I would imagine, you second guess game week 7. What's going to go through my head and others, and how do I get Lukaku? Bye bye Ronaldo. But for you, hello.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think that Mount can cover Lukaku, I think that's fine. I like again, I look at the forward line and I think Ronaldo and Lukaku score at least 20 goals this season. And if that happens, then having them early and laboring maybe 1 or 2 weeks when they're not scoring the goals will pay off in the end. They're very strong captain materials. I doubt that I would captain Mount in a good Chelsea game. So I think that for me as well plays a bit in it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, and just go back to that game week 7, because that is the decision people are going to make. And so this, we're looking ahead to game week 4, ahead of game week 7, which is when other people might be considering wildcarding. It's a good time to. We've got game week 5, 6, and 7. So we've got three transfers left. What
Yeah.
is? How do you plan to use your 3 transfers before game week 7?
Yeah, I mean, if I go with Lukaku, Ronaldo, and Salah, like I want to see that they're delivering over the next 3 games. If I see one of them not really delivering at that level, I think each one of them has a good alternative. Like Salah, I'm probably not going to transfer out, but there's Jota. Ronaldo, I mean, let's see how Greenwood comes along. Like if he continues to play, continues to shoot on side, good stats, then honestly, maybe you avoid the Bruno Ronaldo point and just have Greenwood in there. And Lukaku, you have the Mount point. So I think, I mean, if I wait a week and then two free transfers just to downgrade one of them and to upgrade the fifth mid or the fourth mid that I have, I think it's worth probably starting a bit more risky and switching to what most people will switch to in the wild card in 7. Because now we haven't seen Ronaldo yet. We haven't seen like Lukaku up to the full potential yet. So I think a lot of people are just waiting it out to see. And I feel I want to take a bit of a chance on these players. And if it doesn't work out, I'll convert to like a more steady, flexible format.
One thing I like about this plan of your plan A and your plan B is you've got the most expensive player in each outfield category. Alexander-Arnold, Salah,
Yeah.
Ronaldo, or it could be Kane.
Yeah.
And therefore that is really flexible. So even though you were saying plan B is perhaps more flexible, plan A is still flexible because ultimately there is still Salah, Ronaldo and Alexander-Arnold. They can be moved if needs be.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, I mean, for me, those 3 players specifically, like will all get even above 200 points. Like I think maybe Trent gets something like 170, 180, hopefully again if he's injury free for the season. But he could and I was bitten by that in the game where he scored and assisted 4 times. Like he had a bit of a bad run beforehand, versus like before that Leicester game. I transferred him out. He got 24 points. The game ended. I transferred him in and I said, sorry, Trent, never again.
Yeah.
I'm never transferring you out again.
Definitely. There is one team that's admitted here, Wolves. Now, in some of the tables I was looking at, they do appear to have been unfortunate not to have scored more. But are you looking at something else with the eye test? Is Jimenez perhaps not back to his old self? Is Traore still that fast guy that you don't stop but can't score? I mean, what's your attitude? You mentioned Cody's a bit boring. what's your attitude to Wolves?
Yeah, so I mean, the Man U game, they were super unlucky not to score. Like that like goal line clearance by Wan-Bissaka, like they really should have scored. I still haven't seen Jimenez get back to his old self. Like I think he's on the periphery of things. I haven't seen him really at the forefront of it. So I would like to see a bit more from him before I get him in, because there's so many there's so many great attacking options. Like I would much rather go Calvert-Lewin than Jimenez at the moment. Although he used to be one of my favorite players, always in my team, super consistent. I think since the injury, given a lot of his goals with headers as well, you don't know if it's like also not easy for him mentally to get into that frame of mind that he was at before. Defensive line, yeah, I mean, Cody, you said it. Like, it's a bit of a bore. Like, even though White is also a center back, I don't know. I usually feel like White can do a bit more attackingly
Yeah.
than Cody.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, the midfield, I really like Trincao. Now he's at 5.9. Like he should have had a clear goal the last game. Does take on opponents, does attack, but and that's the option I was considering instead of Rafinha. Like when I was thinking about Rafinha, if the fixtures had turned quite bad on Rafinha, Dan James was coming in, and he hasn't really performed in the first 3 weeks, I would have said probably Traore out of the three. Like he looked lethal against United. The end product is still not fully there, but it feels like this year it's a matter of time until he starts scoring. Like he's playing most of the games now. Usually he used to either come in as a sub or just do 60, 65 minutes. I think he's going to grow into that team a lot more this year than years before. So he's one of the best, I think, 6.0 price options.
And I guess an escape route for Ben Rama and Rafinha as well.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So good fixtures there. Just looking back, on your career in general, and also looking ahead to your game week 4 wildcard. Is there anything else you wanted to add, really, that you felt that we haven't spoken about so far?
No, I would just no, I thought it was a great conversation. It's great to see that I mirror some of your finishes. I would just probably tell my friends and co-workers that a lot of it is probably skill, not just luck.
Yes, it's skill.
They make fun of me all the time that I'm the luckiest person on earth.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. I think the stats are great, and I think just trusting your gut at the end, because there's so many people that'll tell you like, hey, it's crazy, like you've been doing well, why are you wild carding? Like your team doesn't need a wild card. If you feel it, do it. Like it's at the end of the day, trust your gut and go for it.
Yeah, I always think as well with the wild card, one of the factors I actually decided on using my wild card before Ronaldo, I dead-ended my team by getting rid of Salah for Son. And one of the reasons is that I wanted to use it now because I don't really like the chips and I don't really like the wild card. And I think while it's always there, I think it's gonna make me just enjoy the game a bit more as the weeks go on. I can make moves. I haven't got this sort of mass overhaul of my team, on the back seat, ready and waiting.
Yeah,
and I feel nervous this week, and maybe you do as well with the wild card. But I feel
super nervous. It's like Christmas shopping, right?
Yeah,
like
it is.
You go in, you have like a ton of options. You can choose whatever you want, and then the worst feeling after a wild card is if you look at your previous team and you're like, oh, my previous team did better than my initial one. But then the thing with the wild card is that you need to think long term.
Yeah.
Not just like try to get players for the next 2 or 3. And that's what I was thinking with Lukaku a bit as well. Like he's a player I really want for the entire season. So do I really need to like wait until the perfect opportunity, or do I get him in and trust that he's a quality striker who will score on half a chance? Chelsea will dominate games and he'll score in one of those. So that's but I agree with you. Like I don't like the chips that much. Triple captain has never worked for me, I think. Never. Like I've always played it at the wrong time with the wrong player, whether Mane gets injured or like it's just been terrible.
I've only had one where it's worked, and I think it wasn't that amazing. It was Payet when he was at West Ham. I got 7 points, so it was 21.
Yeah.
But that was the highest I've ever got with a triple captain. So yeah.
Yes, yeah. I'll probably this year. I did promise myself at the beginning of the year I'll do it in a non-double game week, because I've done it now for the past since it's been live, like maybe 5 years or so. Like triple captain in a double game week every single time.
Yeah.
Either a player plays one game only, gets injured, the games are not great. It's too much towards the end of the season to really like call how things will go. Whereas people that I've seen play it at like Aguero home to Newcastle, game week 6, like super hat trick. It's just like
I think wasn't there one where Wijnaldum when he was at have I got this muddled up? When he was at Newcastle and he scored 4 goals improbably.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely done it before. I
Yeah.
mean, I hope he does it again next week, right? Like, if he does it next week and we haven't been on a while, he's still on 14% or so,
Who's
which
this?
is
Sorry.
quite high for or is it higher?
No, no. Sorry. Which player is this again? Sorry.
Ronaldo.
Oh, Ronaldo. Sorry, I was talking about Wijnaldum,
Ah, we nailed them.
which is
Yeah, I mean,
the. But yeah, no, that was the oddest single captaincy, triple captaincy in a single game week I ever saw pay off. But no, you're
yeah,
right
yeah,
about
yeah.
Ronaldo.
That must be one of his relatives, probably.
Ronaldo this week rested, is back. He missed the last Portugal games through suspension. He's back. It's going to be. I mean, if you are going to use a triple captaincy, we can't. We just used our wild card. But if you are, this is maybe.
Yeah, I'm so happy that I now use my wild card, so I can't use my triple
Yeah.
captain because
Yeah.
that's a big decision
It's
to make. But
tempting.
if you call it right, Ronaldo comes in first game at home with supporters, Newcastle, like he does score well against them. Yeah, I mean that's quite a story.
Brilliant. Tino, thanks so much for joining me. It's been great to get insight into your career, but also find out a bit about your Game Week 4 wildcard, because some people might look at your career history and think, oh, that's quite a risky move for Game Week 4. But obviously you are, mixing it up a bit and taking the odd risks where they're a good calculated risk. But good luck with your Game Week 4 wildcard. Good luck with your season. Good luck with your hopefully your 8th top 10k finish, and thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Likewise, like good luck with your wild card. I think only time will prove if we've pulled it too early or not.
Definitely.
All right, thank you so much.